That's good. That's good. All that is good. Ugh. Yeah. Adjust that for a bit. Oh yeah. Whoops. What the fuck? Okay. Still pretty. Ugh. As you can see, I am playing with the volume. Even though it's on the lowest, my volume is the highest. I wanted to see how the stream is, especially when it comes to the volume. Does it sound like it's pretty high? I'm just gonna do a little bit. Alrighty. That should be good at least. Well, oh well. So, anywho, I'm not gonna cover this because I've decided since it's too long, and I feel like that will be something way more interesting to tackle on for the next few days. Um, I figured I actually just go one of the first Kotaku articles about pretty much this. The old 6 Days of Fallujah coverage and what they talk about, especially with. Let's mute the phone because of other things. Because now I'm starting to realize that a lot of phone callers are trying to contact me nowadays. So, it will. So yeah, I also can get more context when actually reading pretty much the interview and see what else they point out so I could analyze it further. So further ado, let's just go to the first one. Well, likely first ones from Luke Plunkett. He wrote a most recent, most recent 6 Day Fallujah article about the new version. So, further ado, Konami polls controversial Iraq war game from April 27th, 2009. So, yeah, a few weeks off, and it would have been around like 12 years ago. Which, yeah. 12 years ago, he actually talked about this, and he even remembered a bit about it. He actually linked it in the other article he wrote, but yeah. Well, that didn't take long. Following some heavy initial criticism of their title, 6 Days of Fallujah, Japanese publishers Konami have decided not to release it. Heavy criticism. Konami's Iraq War game. From Brian Ashcraft. That's different. Ah, okay, this is actually a current one. Konami's Iraq War game, Brawlhalla. This is actually. What? Yeah, this is actually talking about the initial coverage. But should I actually further read it? Yeah, I should. Because the next one, I would just talk about that. Alrighty, so, what to talk about? I figure I just talk further this, and then talk about the cancellation. And then later talk about this big old one that is in the title of this stream. And going to be the main topic of discussion. Alrighty. Konami's Iraq war game, Brawlhalla. So before they call it 6 Days of Fallujah. Or Konami's 6 Days of Fallujah in Fallujah. is a new documentary-style video game set in the Iraq War, developed by Atomic Games. The title is reportedly a commentary-free game immanent- immanitary. Game immanitary. Set against the backdrop of the Second Battle of Fallujah, 6 Days in Fallujah has gamers grapple with the weighty issues of war and difficult decisions it entails. Not even out, the game is already sending mixed signals, while the developer says, "For us, games are not just toys," Konami states. "At the end of the day, it's just a game," Konami's VP of Marketing, Anthony Krautz, told the Wall Street Journal. "We're not trying to make social commentary. We're not pro war. We're not trying to make people feel uncomfortable. We just want to bring a compelling, entertaining experience." Hence the quandary. No, it's quandary. It's quandary. It's the weird thing. But anywho, some of those directly touched by the Iraq War appear extremely sensitive. Former Colonel Tim Collins, a decorated Iraq War vet, stated, "It's much too soon to start making video games about a war that's still going on, an extremely flippant response to one of the most important events in modern history. It's particularly insensitive given what happened in Fallujah, and I will certainly oppose the release of this game." So, in hindsight, back then, so this is me not trying to put hindsights of, well, for, well, hold up, let me actually try to reborn. Okay, they're still good, so I might as well state that. In hindsight, thinking of them back then, I mean, the Battle of Fallujah happened around 2004, and with this being in 2009, this was pretty much this was 5 years after the battle, half a decade. Um, you know, put in that idea, yeah, you, you certainly definitely have people who lived around that time. I mean, hell, you can even have a case with World War One veterans who existed around that time, 2009. Compared to like to the 2021, where what the conflict was already like, it's already 100 years, more than 100 years old now, and there's not many World War One veterans left. So that would be the case with World War Two and then Vietnam, and hell, even when it comes to 9/11, people, where that tragedy will become an historical event, and people would sort of have a detachment, and that can go with that case too. It's like the case with how many people don't have much saying when it comes to what is it, Pearl Harbor, and or maybe I'm just thinking too much about that, because there was a Rick and Morty where they blew up Pearl Harbor, but they refused to blow up the Twin Towers. But that shows the double standard, which it's humor at its own sake. It's of irony and cringe. Well, anywho, enough about cringe humor. I want to talk further about this. From a gamer's point of view, another Iraq War's vet, Dan Wasnoth, who served in the U.S. infantry, is critical of the desire to make it realistic war game. According to Rosenthal, a realistic war game is not going to be fun. Who wants to play a game where you sit around doing nothing, punctured by raiding the wrong house and tearing apart the home of an irritated Iraqi family? Or sitting around on a convoy until your vehicle gets hit by an IED and your character dies with no clear enemy in sight? Who wants to play that? Man, even during that time, singing games were a thing, and I remember freaking one game I actually got, an actual PC CD-ROM game that I got from Office Depot. Um, yeah, it was Office Depot. It's not an Office Max, where it takes place during the uh, the humanitarian operation in Somalia. Um, so where you had the Black Hawk incident. And yeah, that was a challenging game. Not a totally real life sim, but it's around that category because I remember they had it close to the sim selection games, and that does show. That does definitely show on some things related to the operation and issues surrounding that. But you know, it wasn't a AAA game, so there was not much notoriety. Even back then, 2009, before Twitter, Wall Street and other news stations would cover these things, and it would become very popular. Um, so yeah, even can bring up a mob where in this term it is canceling a particular thing by rallying a mob, one tactic when it comes to cancel culture, but it was not a full cultural thing that everybody pretty much would understand and how to do it. It's just a mob mentality back then. Cancel culture started becoming more a thing when, well, one part is organization and particular messages, and then looking at the back catalog and transcripts of people, that starts becoming a known tactic that anybody can do it, and therefore it permits a culture to follow those customs. That's one reason behind it. But no, you had to be an old school in order to cancel things. So, continuing, Roslo adds, I have worries that Konami, whose war game track record includes Boot Camp, Top Gun, Russian Attack / Green Beret, and of course the wonderfully inaccurate Metal Gear Solid series, cannot give the game the level of respect that it deserves. The Iraq War, he continues, is an extremely complex issue, and the Middle East is an extremely complex location. The war in Iraq is an incredibly complex topic. The Middle East is an incredibly complex location. I have major doubts that a company like Konami understands it enough to honor the memories of the soldiers around the world who have fought and died in Iraq. Russman says, it's not a great start that the creative director and Atomic Games is on the one hand stating about trying to present the horrors of war, on the other hand, make entertainment. That's how it reminds me of freaking MGS2 and how Kojima pretty much did that. I mean, famously enough with the ending, but also with so many particular things in the game, which it's interesting. I don't know, but I still take it definitely with a grain of salt because me trying to put a mindset of something that the world of 2009 and let's say 2019, since it's like a 10-year gap, is way different, way different lifestyles. Hell, even a fourth revolution and human progress occurred, freaking DNA and all that. Ugh, that definitely shows that things have changed. But oh well, I can talk about it other day. That's not to say that Russell is against making video games or not, or even hoping to censor this Konami title. He's not. One of the things he thinks Call of Duty 4 did really well was using war as a backdrop. It didn't reference the actual Iraq War, and it didn't need to get into the politics behind it, and Infinity War was able to tell a story without getting bogged down. He says, this isn't possible in 6 days. The game... No, the game isn't set in some unnamed country. It is Iraq, and it's not some unnamed city. It's Fallujah, he adds. There is no way for them to avoid that they chose to place this game in a location where 2,000 homes were damaged or destroyed, where probably over 6,000 civilians were killed, and over 150,000 displaced. Who is this going to tell those stories? One thing... Okay. One thing I like to make clear is that it is not an issue of censorship, Roshmel says. I will fight to the death to defend Konami's right to make this game. At the same time, I strongly protest their decision to actually do it. I think it is foolish. I think it's inappropriate, and I don't have very high hopes that they're going to do a good job of it. I'd love to be proven wrong. Hmm. All valid points from Rochelle. Certainly, it's only fair that those connected to the actual war voice their support is disapproval of this game. Though, to also be fair to both Konami and Atomic Games, we haven't seen the game yet. All we've got is a few screens and miscommunication in a newspaper article. Well, we obviously don't have experience in the Iraq War, and our relationship with it is largely indirect. Let's wait until the game's out. Which ended up not being that because this was April 8th and the latest one was the 27th, so that was around 9 days. Oh, no, no, no. That was around like 19 days, where they pretty much folded. So now we're going to Luke Punkett's first articles on 6 Days in Fallujah. Okay, well, that didn't take long. Following some heavy initial criticism of their title, 6 Days of Fallujah, Japanese publishers Konami had decided not to release it. Alrighty. After seeing the reaction to the video game in the United States and hearing opinions set through phone calls and email, we decided several days ago not to sell it, a Konami spokeswoman told Japanese news site Ashi. Whether this means the game has been scrapped entirely or whether developers Atomic Games can shop it around to another publisher that has the balls to release it, it is unknown. Under criticism, Konami dishes realistic Fallujah video game Ashi via VG 247. Oh, so they actually include this. Actually, I do want to and see what's up. Oh man, I actually just released other than this being an unsafe thing. So yeah, recall that if there's a lock screen and it has a slash, it means it's not a secure line. So yep. Also, it just leaves it to actual page, so I actually would have to look up the article, but it is in English, so that actually makes me do wonder about that. But anyway, let's further do and actually read up these. I want to actually read through here, see what are the replies, because this is pretty much closest thing I could look at understanding the mind of what people's reaction is. Comments. I mean, it is the modern day version of people daily life journals. So yeah, watch the Generation Kill series. That's all you need to know to show you that the game probably won't work. This was 2009, and Generation Kill came out like I believe a year before. Yeah, it's around 2008. A realistic war game is not going to be fun. Who wants to play a video game where you sit around doing nothing? Alrighty. This pretty much sums up the entire problem with the realistic war games. War is hell. War is uncomfortable. War is even boring. Any attempts to make the experience fun or entertaining in itself is a step away from reality. Trying to claim you have both in a game is disingenuous at best. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of thing. That's like a minor opinion even people stated when it came to some comments when it came to the movie Jarhead around the mid 2000s, where a lot of people really hammered it being like a poor ripoff of Full Metal Jacket, but set in the first Gulf War. But later starting getting a resurgence due to people actually starting to understand the complexity of all that, which just goes to show that something can be ahead of its time. Movies can be that. I think that's the point. I don't think the game is supposed to be fun as much as it's trying to send a message. At least that's what I'm hoping it's happening. Yep. The messaging thing, I can actually look at that. Oh man, I did not expect to be so many comments, but this goes to show how important it is to these many old video game company news sites to still be around. Some of its old articles in the comment section of it shows a real grasp of it. I mean, I know that when it comes to internet preservation, the biggest thing to look at has to do with saving comments in a text bubble, because it is certainly very challenging, um, not impossible, to try to have an old website to be an archival website. People save. People are still trying to find ways to do it. I mean, how? Q- Quix and its software is able to actually mimic the Wikipedia experience, and it's all its glory with hyperlinks and sources and all that, without just being a single text document and such. But that's the case with comments, where it's usually just in a text document of a particular article. And even though that, some people tend to skip that aside, but for someone who actually does know a value of understanding a person's thought process in written form, those are what comments are. And it's like throwing away a person's blog journal, ripping it out from their book. That goes to show how important it is. And yeah, it's. Or I'm just gushing the fact that I'm able to read old comments because of this big old comment section. Man, it brings me back. Because maybe one day I'm probably gonna read some old comments I used to read before. But it just clicks. Okay, no, you're right. There was no suicide bombings before we showed up, but there were ethnic cleansings. Is that somehow better? You think I'm going to cry about a game where I play as a soldier killing terrorists who bomb their own countrymen? Lo, it's about time we got something on the war that isn't some dig at Bush or the war. Ah, good old George Bush, because he was still around. Yeah, until we started having this new person called Obama. Hmm. Yeah, but in World War II, it's perfectly fine. Apparently, as in Vietnam, the American Revolution, and just about any other war ever. Stream of conscious at, yeah, actually puts that, because the at would be after, not before, like in Discord or some other sites. It's interesting. But yeah, there's just so much fun about that. Okay, anywho, let's go through here in this comment section. Let's see all comments here. Ooh, 24. Great. USA is so sensitive about their war crimes, call me a troll, whatever. I'm just sick of Americans talking about liberty, freedom, or whatever against terrorism, and then you see how they invade other nations or meddle in other people's businesses for their own personal gain. Bleh. I don't know why he captions with invade, because invasion, it is degrading. The invasion of Iraq. I mean, that's the reason why some Americans wouldn't even like to say the invasion of Iraq. Um, but have signs that invade. I'm actually trying to think. His mind is like, what's more degrading? My guess is just that. Uh, no. This is a bit biased, because I'm trying to remember what people thinking that Americans actually know they were a invading country, which not many people didn't know, and that goes to show the amount of um, social stag uh, stagnation between censoring a form of opinions and stuff like that. I mean, if you're against the war in the United States, well, you get chastised for that, because, yeah, there was a whole lot of things. There was a whole lot of political matter that, yeah, I mean, in its own self, it's controversial. It's controversial as the anti-Islamophobia that has started existing around the world, not just the U.S., around the world. Well, when 9/11 happened. But yeah, it also shows other things. And it seems like they're just commenting at each other, so I don't know much about it, but it does show that it's referring to other things related to the US, they, and other things they have heard. But it seems like people are stating how this is inevitable due to war crimes and stuff like that. Which, yeah, that's something to complain about. And it seems like, well, actually, yeah. Let me actually talk further about this over here. But yeah, it goes to show that people are a bit bitter how they um didn't seem right that they're gonna showcase the war game because it could probably make the U.S. look bad. A lot of Americans protesting of how it's dishonorable and stuff, and then you have a lot of other people looking at it as that, well, you don't want to show the insensitivity even though it's real life. So yeah, it is. It is somewhat similar and different with what people would proclaim, but instead of it being against it from not releasing, people are doing it for it releasing of how it's just going to show tragedy and stuff like that. So not showing it, along with it being this factory. But no. Also, right now I'm also feeling a bit rushed because I actually don't want to get too further to this and see if I should just cover this more. All right. Yeah, this actually shows real footage of the Marines, and along with first screenshots here, making a game out of today's war. Today's war referring to the war in 2009. 2 years after 2009, that's when the Iraq War officially ends. But the reality is, and it's not because the U.S. just said officially they just don't operate there in an official capacity, or back in 2004 where uh, there was U.S. active operations due to Daesh expanding its territory between Iraq and Syria and wreaking havoc there. It has to do with there's always a capacity of military actions, military operations around the globe in different sections. So you pretty much had uh, uh, the long acronym, which is pretty much just uh, United States Middle Eastern Military Operations Command. Um, oh, that always operate this region. I mean, all the way since shoot, all the way since '70s and before that. And yeah, I just might as well talk about the history and just talk about this later. Damn it, I'm gonna put this as continue, even though I haven't talked about this. Oh well, much. Oh well. Yeah, the U.S. started being involved with that when it became a huge sphere of influence. Um, after the Suez Crisis, when France and Britain started losing a lot of mil- military prestige between allied countries, especially when it comes to NATO and operating around the area, particularly in the Middle East and Africa. Um, but before that, you pretty much had Britain, France, the Soviet Union, and then before that, you had the Ottoman Empire, German Empire, and Russia Empire, just having a sphere of influence. But that goes to show that some things tend to have a correlation. History does not repeat itself, but it often rhymes. Well, anywho, that's pretty much all for today. So, see ya.